The spreadsheet glowed on my second monitor, quarterly projections for the nonprofit I'd spent 6 years building from nothing. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I was close to cracking the funding gap that would let us expand into 3 more states. Then my phone buzzed with an alert I'd never seen before: unusual login detected, savings account 4782. Location, Denver, Colorado. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I wasn't in Denver. I was in my home office in Portland, Maine. My fingers froze over the keyboard. I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app, heart already beginning to race. The screen loaded slowly, each second stretching like taffy. When it finally appeared, my breath caught in my throat. Withdrawal, $8,500. Time, 11:47 a.m. Status, processing. Another one beneath it, $6,200. Then another, $4,800. $19,000. Gone. In less than 15 minutes. I called the bank's fraud line, my voice shaking despite every effort to sound calm. The representative, Darren, his name badge probably read, though I'd never see it, spoke in that practiced tone of concern that customer service reps perfect over years of dealing with panicked customers. Ms. Hartley, I'm showing that the withdrawals were initiated from a verified device using your saved password and security answers. The system flagged the location as unusual, but all the credentials checked out. That's impossible, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I'm looking at my laptop right now. I'm the only one who uses it. My husband is at work, and no one else has access to. I stopped mid-sentence. My laptop. The one that had been repaired 3 weeks ago when my mother-in-law, Constance, insisted her tech-savvy nephew could fix the overheating issue I'd been complaining about. The nephew, a wiry 20-something named Jared who barely made eye contact, had kept it for 2 days. When he returned it, everything seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. It ran smoother, quieter. Ms. Hartley? Are you still there? I need you to freeze the account, I said, my brain already racing ahead. Right now. Don't process any more transactions. I can place a temporary hold, but you'll need to come into a branch with valid ID to do it. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and stared at my laptop screen. The spreadsheet was still there, innocent and unchanged. But something felt different now. Like the machine itself was watching me. I opened the task manager, scanning through running processes. Nothing looked obviously wrong, but I wasn't a tech expert. I grabbed my personal phone, the one I used for everything important, the one that had never left my sight, and searched, how to detect spyware on PC. The results made my stomach drop. Keyloggers. Remote access tools. Screen capture software. All of it invisible to the average user, all of it capable of recording every password, every bank login, every private conversation. I thought back to 3 weeks ago. Constance had shown up unannounced, as she often did, with a Tupperware container of her famous lemon bars and that smile that never quite reached her eyes. Sweetheart, you mentioned your computer was acting up. Jared's wonderful with these things. He fixed mine last month. Why don't you let him take a look? I'd hesitated. My husband, Daniel, had encouraged it. Mom's just trying to help. You've been so stressed with work. Let Jared handle it. So I'd handed it over. My work laptop. The one connected to every account I had. The one that held my entire financial life. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Mom wants to know if we're still coming for dinner Sunday. She's making pot roast. I stared at the message, my hands trembling. Constance. Her nephew. The laptop. It wasn't a coincidence. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, but something made me pause. I turned back to my desk and pulled out my phone, opening the camera app. I took photos of everything, the laptop screen, the task manager, the banking app showing the withdrawals. Then I screenshotted every transaction, every alert, every detail. If I was right about this, I'd need proof. The bank branch was mercifully empty when I arrived. The manager, a woman named Patricia with gray-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, led me into a small office that smelled like stale coffee and printed paper. "I need to know exactly how those withdrawals were authorized," I said, sliding my ID across her desk. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Patricia typed rapidly, her eyes scanning the screen. The login came from an IP address in Denver. The device fingerprint matches one that's accessed your account multiple times over the past 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I repeated, my voice hollow. Yes. Always from Denver. Small transactions at first, $200, $500. This morning's withdrawals were the largest. They'd been testing it, making sure they could access the account without triggering alarms. Getting bolder. "Can you tell me the exact device?" Patricia hesitated. "It's showing as a Windows PC. Same hardware signature as your primary device, but the location services place it in the Denver metro area." "My laptop." "A copy of my laptop, maybe. Or remote access software that made it look like my machine." "I need everything frozen," I said. "Every account. And I need printed records of every transaction from the past month." Patricia nodded slowly, her expression shifting from bureaucratic neutrality to something resembling concern. "Ms. Hartley, if you believe this is fraud, you should file a police report." "I will," I said, though I already knew the police wouldn't help. Not yet. Not without more proof. Because the people who'd done this weren't strangers. They were family. And family, I was learning, could get away with almost anything if you didn't know how to fight back. But I was about to learn. I left the bank with a folder thick with transaction records and a new, private account that only I could access. On the drive home, my phone rang. Constance. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, Daniel called. I answered. "Hey. Mom said you're not answering her calls. Is everything okay?" I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car, staring at my dark house. "Daniel, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Silence. "When Jared fixed my laptop, did he say anything about installing software? Updates, security programs, anything like that?" I don't know." "Why?" "Because someone's been accessing my bank account from Denver. And the only person who's touched my laptop in the past month is your cousin." More silence. Then, quietly, "That's crazy, Ava. Jared wouldn't." $19,000, Daniel. Gone this morning." I heard him exhale, sharp and shaky. "I'll talk to him." "No," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever used with him. "You won't." "Not yet. Because if I'd learned anything in 6 years of running a nonprofit, it was this: when someone steals from you, you don't warn them. You document everything, build your case, and strike when they think they're safe." And I was just getting started. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the spare bedroom, the one Daniel never entered because it was full of my nonprofit paperwork and old filing cabinets, with my personal laptop open and a notepad beside me. First rule of fighting back: don't let them know you're fighting back. I texted Daniel at midnight, "Sorry for being weird earlier. Stressful day. Bank sorted it out, fraud protection kicked in. Going to bed. Love you." He responded immediately, "Thank God. Love you too. Mom's relieved you're okay." Mom's relieved. I stared at those 2 words until they blurred. She already knew. Of course she knew. Probably called Daniel the moment she saw the bank's fraud alert, spinning some story about being worried, playing the concerned mother-in-law while her nephew sat in Denver counting my money. I opened a private browser window and started researching. Not just spyware detection, I needed to understand how deep this went. If Jared had installed remote access software, he could see everything. Every email. Every document. Every conversation. Which meant I couldn't use my work laptop for any of this. At 6 a.m., I drove to a coffee shop 3 towns over, paid cash for a breakfast sandwich I didn't eat, and used their public Wi-Fi to create a new email address, truthseeker.appoint2025@protonmail.com. Encrypted. Anonymous. Clean. Then I sent myself every banking document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I had from my phone. Once they were safely stored in the cloud, I deleted them from my device. If they were watching my computer, they couldn't see my phone. Not yet, anyway. By 7:30 a.m., I was back home, showered, dressed for work, playing the role of the woman who'd had a scare but was moving on. Daniel was in the kitchen making coffee, still in his hospital scrubs from the night shift. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "You okay?" he asked, handing me a mug. "Yeah," I lied. "Just shaken up. The bank said it happens more than you'd think. Credential stuffing or something." He nodded, relieved to accept the easy answer. "Mom wants us to still come Sunday. She feels terrible about everything." "I bet she does." "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Wouldn't miss it." He kissed my forehead and headed upstairs to sleep. The moment I heard the bedroom door close, I pulled out my phone and made the first call. The number belonged to a woman named Ramona Voss, a cybersecurity consultant I'd met at a nonprofit conference 2 years ago. She'd given me her card after my presentation on digital safety for vulnerable populations, saying, "If you ever need someone who knows how to find what people are hiding, call me." I'd kept the card in my wallet ever since. She answered on the second ring. "Voss. Ramona, this is Ava Hartley. We met at the Portland Nonprofits Summit in 2023. You said if I ever needed help." "I remember. What's going on?" I told her everything. The laptop repair. The withdrawals. The Denver IP address. The family connection. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Then, you think they installed rat software? Remote access Trojan. I don't know what they installed. That's why I'm calling you. Don't touch that laptop. Don't turn it on, don't connect it to anything. If they've got remote access, they'll know the second you start digging." "What do I do?" "Bring it to me. I'll run a forensic analysis, pull logs, find every piece of software they buried in there." "But Ava, if this is family, you need to be prepared for what comes next. Evidence like this doesn't stay quiet." "I know. Do you? Because once we prove this, you're going to have to decide, do you want them arrested, or do you want your money back? Most people can't have both." I thought about Constance's smile. About Jared's refusal to make eye contact. About $19,000 stolen while I was building spreadsheets to help homeless families. "I want both," I said. Ramona laughed, low and dark. "Good. I'll text you my address. Come tonight. And Ava? Don't tell anyone. Not your husband, not your friends. No one." "Understood." The second call was harder. I sat in my car in the nonprofit's parking lot, staring at the contact name, Mom. My mother, Delilah, lived 4 states away in Tucson. We talked every Sunday, clockwork calls that lasted exactly 30 minutes. She'd never liked Daniel's family, said Constance had cold eyes and warm words, which was her southern way of calling someone a snake. I'd always defended them. Told her she was being judgmental. Now I needed her to know she'd been right all along. "Ava? Baby, it's Wednesday. You never call on Wednesdays." Her voice cracked something open in my chest. I'd been holding it together for 18 hours, but hearing her say my name like that, like I was still her little girl who needed protecting, almost broke me. "Mama, I need help." Silence. Then, sharp and focused, "What happened?" I told her. Not everything, not about Ramona, not about my plan, but enough. The theft. The laptop. The family I'd married into showing their true colors. When I finished, she didn't gasp or cry or say I told you so. She just said, "How much do you need?" What? How much money do you need to fight this? Legal fees, expert fees, whatever it takes. How much? Tears burned behind my eyes. Mama, I'm not asking you for. I didn't ask if you were asking. I asked how much you need. I don't know yet. Then you call me when you do. And Ava? Don't you dare protect that boy's feelings over your own safety. Daniel married you. He chose you. If he can't stand with you against his own blood, then he chose wrong. I closed my eyes. I love him, Mama. I know you do, baby. But love doesn't pay back $19,000. And it doesn't stop thieves from stealing again. She was right. I knew she was right. I have to go to work, I whispered. You call me tonight. Promise me. I promise. I hung up and sat in the parking lot for another 10 minutes, composing myself. Then I walked into the office, smiled at my assistant director, and spent the next 8 hours pretending everything was normal. But at 5 p.m., I left early, told everyone I had a doctor's appointment, and drove 90 minutes south to Ramona's address. She lived in a converted warehouse in an industrial neighborhood that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1987. Inside, the space was split between living quarters and what could only be described as a hacker's workshop, servers humming, monitors glowing, cables snaking across every surface. You brought it? She asked, not bothering with pleasantries. I held up my work laptop, still in its bag. Good. Sit. For the next 3 hours, I watched Ramona work. She didn't talk much, just muttered occasionally at the screen while her fingers flew across the keyboard. I sat on a worn leather couch and drank bad coffee, my stomach in knots. Finally, she leaned back and swore under her breath. What? I asked, standing. They didn't just install spyware. They cloned your entire system. My blood went cold. What does that mean? It means they have a virtual copy of your laptop running on a server somewhere, probably Jared's home setup. Every keystroke you make, every file you open, every password you enter, it mirrors in real time to his machine. He's been watching you for 3 weeks, Ava. Everything. The room tilted. I grabbed the back of the couch. But here's the thing, Ramona continued, turning her monitor toward me. Idiots always make mistakes. And your cousin-in-law? He's an idiot. On the screen was a log file, dense with code I didn't understand. He didn't scrub the install logs. I can see exactly what he put on here, when he did it, and where it's reporting back to. IP address, physical location, even the email account he used to set up the remote access. She pulled up a map. A red pin sat on a residential street in Denver. That's his house. I stared at the pin. At the proof. At the beginning of the end for Constance and her thief of a nephew. Can you document all of this? I asked. Already am. I'll have a full forensic report by Friday. Admissible in court, if you want to go that route. I want every route. Ramona smiled, the kind of smile that said she'd been waiting for someone to say that. Then let's burn their world down. I drove home with my laptop still in Ramona's possession and a plan forming in my mind. Daniel was asleep when I got home. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching him breathe, and wondered if I'd have to choose between justice and my marriage. Then I thought about $19,000. About Constance's fake concern. About Jared's hands on my computer, installing software designed to steal from me. And I realized, if Daniel made me choose, he'd already chosen for me. I went back downstairs, pulled out my phone, and sent one text to Ramona. Friday. I want everything. Her response came seconds later. You'll have it. Friday came faster than I expected. I spent Thursday playing the perfect daughter-in-law, texting Constance about Sunday dinner, asking if I should bring wine or dessert. She responded with enthusiasm that would have seemed genuine if I didn't know what I knew now. Just bring yourself, sweetheart. So glad you're feeling better after that banking scare. These hackers are everywhere these days. I read her message 3 times, marveling at the audacity. She was good. Decades of practice, probably. How many people had she done this to before me? Ramona called at exactly 9 a.m. Friday morning. I'm sending the report to your secure email. Encrypted. Password is your birth year plus the last 4 of your social. Don't open it on any device that's been in your house. Understood. Ava, before you look at it, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her voice made my stomach clench. What? This wasn't their first time. I found residual logs from practice runs. They tested the software on 2 other machines before yours. Different names in the system files. One labeled D. Mitchell, another K. Reeves. My mouth went dry. Who are they? I don't know yet. But if I had to guess. Previous targets. Maybe family, maybe friends. People they practiced on before they got to you. I sat down on the bench outside the coffee shop where I'd parked, my legs suddenly unsteady. This wasn't just about me. This was a pattern. A system. Can you find them? I asked. Already working on it. I'll let you know what I dig up. I hung up and drove to the public library in the next town over, used one of their computers to access my encrypted email. The report loaded slowly, page after page of technical documentation, screenshots, and timeline analyses. But it was the summary on page 3 that made everything real. Findings. Remote Access Trojan, Dark Comet variant, installed September 14, 2025. Keylogger active since September 15, 2025. Screen capture module recording every 30 seconds. Financial data exfiltrated to external server, 247.8 megabytes total. Command and control server located at residential address, 4502 Pinewood Drive, Denver, Colorado 80237. Registered occupant, Jared T. Whitmore. Associated email for CNC setup, j.whitmore.tech@gmail.com. Evidence of prior deployments on machines designated D. Mitchell, August 2024, and K. Reeves, March 2025. There it was. Undeniable. Documented. Traced directly to Jared's house, his email, his handiwork. I printed 2 copies of the full report, one for me, one for what came next, and tucked them into a folder I'd bought specifically for this purpose. Plain manila. Unremarkable. The kind of folder that would sit on a detective's desk and demand attention. But I wasn't going to the police. Not yet. Because Ramona's words echoed in my head, evidence like this doesn't stay quiet. And I needed to control exactly how loud it got. My next stop was 30 minutes away, in a small office above a Thai restaurant that always smelled like basil and fish sauce. The sign on the door read, Lydia Grant, attorney at law, family and financial litigation. I'd found her through a rabbit hole of online research, a lawyer who specialized in elder financial abuse and family fraud cases. Her reviews were specific and glowing. She doesn't back down. Went after my brother-in-law for stealing from my mother, got every penny back. Ruthless in the best way. Exactly what I needed. Lydia was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes behind rectangular glasses and silver streaks in her dark hair that she wore like war paint. Ms. Hartley, she said, shaking my hand with a grip that meant business. You said on the phone this was family theft with cybercrime elements? Yes. Tell me everything. I laid it out methodically, the laptop repair, the withdrawals, Ramona's forensic report. I slid the folder across her desk. She read in silence, her expression never changing, but I watched her jaw tighten incrementally with each page. When she finished, she closed the folder and looked at me. This is prosecutable. Federal computer fraud, wire fraud, identity theft. You could have them arrested today. But arrests don't always mean convictions. And convictions don't always mean you get your money back. Family cases get messy. Juries sympathize with misunderstandings. Prosecutors plea down. You need to decide what you want most. I thought about Daniel asleep in our bed. About Sunday dinners I'd attended for 5 years, smiling at Constance while she made passive-aggressive comments about my career. About every time she'd offered help that came with invisible strings. I want them exposed, I said. Publicly. Completely. So they can never do this to anyone else. Lydia smiled, thin and sharp. Then we don't start with police. We start with leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes them confess before we ever file charges. You said there were other victims, Mitchell and Reeves. If we can find them, get their stories, we build a pattern. Multiple victims means federal attention. RICO predicates, potentially. But more importantly, it means when we approach Constance and Jared, they know we're not bluffing. How do we find the others? Leave that to me. I have an investigator who specializes in digital forensics and skip tracing. If those names are real people who interacted with your in-laws, he'll find them. She pulled out a contract, slid it across the desk. Standard retainer. $5,000 up front. But Ava, I need to ask, your husband. Where does he stand in this? The question I'd been avoiding. I don't know yet, I admitted. He doesn't know what I've found. He thinks the bank resolved everything. You're going to have to tell him. Soon. Because when this goes public, and it will, he's going to have to choose. You need to be prepared for that choice to hurt. I signed the contract with a hand that didn't shake. I'm prepared. That night, I made dinner. Daniel's favorite, chicken piccata with roasted vegetables and garlic bread. He came home from his shift looking exhausted but happy to see me cooking. What's the occasion? He asked, kissing my cheek. No occasion. Just felt like doing something nice. We ate and talked about his day, about a patient who'd coded and come back, about the new attending who nobody liked. Normal. Domestic. The kind of evening we'd had 100 times before. After dinner, while he loaded the dishwasher, I said casually, your mom called earlier. Confirmed Sunday at 2. Yeah, she's excited. Said she's making your favorite dessert. Lemon bars. The same ones she'd brought the day she convinced me to let Jared fix my laptop. Great, I said, and meant it. Because Sunday dinner was going to be very different than Constance expected. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, I received an email from Lydia's investigator. Subject line, found them. I opened it on my phone, heart pounding. Dorothy Mitchell, 68, Aurora, Colorado, victim of financial exploitation, 2024. Lost $43,000 to tech support scam. Family member with tech access, nephew Jared Whitmore. Kevin Reeves, 52, Lakewood, Colorado, unauthorized account access, March 2025. Lost $12,000. Connection to perpetrator, wife's cousin, Jared Whitmore. 2 people. 2 victims. Same family. Same method. And according to the investigator's notes, neither had reported it to police. Dorothy thought she'd been hacked by strangers. Kevin suspected his wife's cousin but had no proof and didn't want to cause family drama. The investigator had already made contact. Both were willing to talk. I stared at my phone screen, at the names of 2 people who'd been exactly where I was now, violated, stolen from, and convinced they had to stay quiet to keep the peace. But I wasn't keeping the peace. I was about to shatter it. I forwarded the email to Lydia with one line, set up a meeting. All 3 of us. I want them to know they're not alone. Her response came immediately, Monday. My office. I'll arrange it. Sunday dinner was still 2 days away. Monday's meeting with the other victims was 3. But already, I could feel the momentum building. The evidence stacking. The network of silence beginning to crack. Constance and Jared thought they were safe behind family loyalty and technical ignorance. They had no idea what was coming. I climbed back into bed next to Daniel, watching him sleep, and wondered how many more nights we'd have like this. How many more mornings of coffee and small talk before I had to tell him that his family had been stealing from vulnerable people for years. That his mother had orchestrated it. That his loyalty was about to be tested in ways neither of us were ready for. But that was a problem for Sunday. Tonight, I let myself have this, the warmth of his breathing, the safety of our shared bed, the last moments of a marriage that might not survive the truth. Because come Monday, everything changed. And by Sunday dinner, Constance would be sitting across from a woman who knew exactly what she'd done, and had 2 other victims ready to prove it. Monday morning arrived with rain drumming against the windows and a text from Lydia. Dorothy and Kevin confirmed for 11 a.m. Come early. We need to prep. I told Daniel I had a donor meeting, not entirely a lie, since I was meeting people who'd lost money, and left the house at 9:30. The drive to Lydia's office felt longer than usual, every red light another opportunity to second-guess myself. But then I'd remember the number, $19,000. And Dorothy's $43,000. And Kevin's $12,000. $74,000 stolen from 3 people by the same family using the same method. That math didn't lie. Lydia was waiting with coffee and a conference room that smelled like old books and determination. Dorothy's already here, she said quietly. She's nervous. Kevin's running late but confirmed he's coming. Dorothy Mitchell sat in a chair by the window, hands clasped in her lap like she was at a funeral. She looked exactly like the photo the investigator had sent, silver hair and neat curls, cardigan despite the mild weather, eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Mrs. Mitchell, I said, extending my hand. I'm Ava Hartley. Thank you for coming. Her handshake was surprisingly firm. Call me Dorothy. And I almost didn't come. Wasn't sure what good it would do, dredging all this up again. It'll do more good than you think, Lydia said, closing the door behind us. We sat, the 3 of us forming an awkward triangle around the conference table. Dorothy's coffee sat untouched, steam rising like her unspoken anxiety. Can I ask you something? Dorothy said, looking directly at me. How did you find out? I mean, really find out. Because I suspected for months, but I couldn't prove anything. I told her about the bank alert, about Ramona's forensic analysis, about the logs that proved Jared's software was on my machine. Dorothy's face shifted from cautious to something harder. Angry. I wish I'd known someone like your Ramona, she said. All I had was my gut and my grandson telling me I was paranoid. Jared was so helpful, you know. Fixed my computer after I mentioned it was slow. Showed me how to pay bills online because my arthritis makes writing checks difficult. He was patient. The word dripped with bitter irony. How long before you noticed money missing? Lydia asked, pen poised over her legal pad. 3 months. Small amounts first, 200 here, 500 there. I thought I was forgetting transactions. Early dementia, maybe. My daughter suggested I get tested. Dorothy's voice cracked. I let them make me think I was losing my mind rather than believe someone was stealing from me. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. When did you realize it was Jared? I didn't. Not until your investigator called and explained the pattern. All I knew was that the transactions always happened on Thursdays, and Thursdays were when Jared came over to check on me. Said his Aunt Constance worried about me living alone. My stomach turned. Constance sent him to you. Every week. Like clockwork. Dorothy pulled her hand back, wrapping both arms around herself. When I finally went to the bank, they said the same thing they probably told you, legitimate login, correct passwords, verified device. Nothing they could do. I filed a police report, but the detective, young guy, didn't care much, said it was probably a phishing scam. Case closed. Did you tell Constance what happened? I asked. Dorothy nodded. She brought me a casserole and cried. Said she felt terrible, that she'd never have sent Jared over if she'd known I was vulnerable to scams. She even offered to pay me back, $2,000, she said, from her own savings. To help with what I'd lost. 2,000, Lydia repeated. Out of 43. I didn't take it. Felt like charity. Like admitting I was some foolish old woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. Dorothy's eyes met mine. But I was foolish, wasn't I? Just not the way they wanted me to think. Before I could respond, the door opened. Kevin Reeves stood there, soaked from the rain, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Sorry I'm late, he muttered. Couldn't find parking. Kevin was younger than I expected, early 50s, athletic build, wearing a software company polo that suggested he wasn't technologically illiterate. Which made his victimization somehow worse. He didn't sit immediately. Just stood by the door like he might bolt. Kevin, Lydia said gently. Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy. Yeah, well. He finally moved to the table, dropping into a chair. My wife doesn't know I'm here. She'd kill me if she knew I was talking about this. Why? I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw recognition there. The same shame I'd felt. The same anger at being made to feel shame. Because Jared's her cousin. Because Constance helped us when we were broke 5 years ago, loaned us 10 grand interest-free when we were about to lose our house. Because I can't prove it was Jared, and even if I could, my wife would say I'm destroying her family over money. Can you prove it? Lydia asked. No. I'm in IT, so I know what to look for, but by the time I suspected something, he'd already scrubbed my system. All I have is the timing. He borrowed my laptop to update some security settings in March. 2 weeks later, $12,000 moved from my savings to an account I'd never heard of. Bank said it was my credentials, my device fingerprint. End of story. Lydia slid a copy of Ramona's report across the table. This is from Ava's computer. Forensic analysis showing exactly what Jared installed and where it reported back to. Kevin read slowly, his jaw tightening with every paragraph. When he reached the section listing the prior deployments, D. Mitchell and K. Reeves, he looked up. You found the logs. We found everything, Lydia said. Kevin pushed the report back like it burned his hands. So what? I go to my wife with this and tell her that her cousin, who she's known since childhood, is a thief. That her aunt orchestrated it? You know what she'll say? She'll say it's a coincidence. That the logs could be faked. That I'm paranoid because I never liked her family anyway. She might surprise you, I offered weakly. She won't. Kevin's voice was flat with certainty. I've already tried talking to her about the missing money. She blamed me for bad password security. Said I probably clicked a phishing link. We fought about it for weeks, and I dropped it because I was tired of being called crazy. Dorothy reached across the table, touching Kevin's sleeve. I understand. And she did. We all did. Because that was the brilliance of Constance's system, she chose victims who'd be blamed for their own victimization. An elderly woman with memory concerns. A man who'd look paranoid accusing family. A daughter-in-law too busy with work to notice until it was almost too late. Here's what I'm proposing, Lydia said, reclaiming control of the room. We build a joint case. 3 victims, same perpetrator, same method, same family network. We present it to federal prosecutors as wire fraud and identity theft. But before we do that, we give Constance and Jared one chance to make this right. Make it right how? Kevin asked skeptically. Full restitution. Written confession. Agreement to never contact any of you again. In exchange, we don't pursue criminal charges. They'll never agree to that, Dorothy said. They will if the alternative is federal prison. I'd been quiet, listening, processing. Now I spoke. What if they call our bluff? What if they say we don't have enough evidence or that we're bitter family members making things up? Lydia smiled. Then we stop bluffing and file charges. But Ava, this is where you come in. You're still invited to Sunday dinner, right? My stomach dropped. Yes. Then you're going to wear a wire. The room went silent. You want me to get her to confess, I said slowly. At dinner. With my husband there. I want you to ask questions. Let her talk. People like Constance, they're arrogant. They think they've gotten away with it. Give her the opportunity to gloat, and she will. And if she doesn't? Then we move forward anyway. But if she does, if we get her on tape admitting to any part of this, we have leverage. Real leverage. The kind that ends with her writing checks to all three of you. Dorothy was nodding. Kevin looked uncertain. I felt sick. My husband, I said. He'll be there. He'll hear everything. Lydia's expression softened. I know. And I'm sorry. But Daniel needs to hear it too. He needs to know who his mother really is. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing it didn't make it hurt less. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Lydia pulled out equipment from a locked drawer, a small recording device, no bigger than a USB drive, with a clip-on microphone. Audio only. We can't risk video, too easy to spot. You'll wear this under your shirt. The range is good for about 50 feet, and it records to an encrypted chip. Nothing cloud-based, nothing that can be hacked. She showed me how to activate it, how to check the battery, how to position the microphone for optimal pickup. Kevin watched with something like pity. You're braver than me. Or stupider, I said. Braver, Dorothy insisted. She stood, moving around the table to hug me. You're doing what I couldn't. What Kevin couldn't. You're making sure she can't do this again. When Dorothy and Kevin left, with promises to stay in touch and Lydia's assurance she'd update them on every development, I sat alone in the conference room, holding the recording device. You don't have to do this, Lydia said quietly. We can pursue charges without a confession. No, I said. I want her to say it. I want her to admit what she did, and I want Daniel to hear it from her own mouth. Because if I told him without proof, he'd doubt. He'd want to believe his mother. He'd find reasons to dismiss the evidence. But if Constance confessed while he sat 3 feet away, eating her pot roast and pretending to be a family, he'd have to choose. And maybe, finally, he'd choose me. I drove home with the recording device in my purse and a plan forming in my mind. Sunday dinner. 48 hours away. 48 hours to prepare for the conversation that would either save my marriage or end it. Sunday morning felt surreal. I woke up to Daniel humming in the shower, completely oblivious to the fact that in 6 hours, his entire understanding of his family would implode. I made pancakes. He loved my pancakes, blueberry with real maple syrup, the expensive kind we saved for special occasions. Maybe I was trying to cushion what was coming. Maybe I just needed something normal to hold on to before everything went sideways. You're quiet, he said, pouring coffee. Nervous about seeing Mom? If only he knew. Just tired, I lied. Work's been intense. He kissed the top of my head. Well, relax today. Mom's cooking, we'll eat too much, and you can take a nap on their couch like you always do. The casual intimacy of it, the assumption that today would be like every other Sunday, made my chest tight. After breakfast, I went upstairs and locked myself in the bathroom. The recording device sat on the counter, small and unassuming. Lydia had called yesterday with final instructions: clip it to your bra strap. The microphone goes here, she'd pointed to just below my collarbone, under your shirt. Test it before you go in. And Ava? Don't be a hero. If things get dangerous, get out. Dangerous. As if Constance would pull a knife over pot roast. But I knew what Lydia meant. Emotional danger. The kind that came from watching your husband defend someone who'd stolen from you. I activated the device, hearing the faint beep that confirmed recording. Then I pulled on a loose cotton blouse, nothing tight that would show the outline, and checked myself in the mirror. I looked normal. Tired, maybe, but normal. The woman in the mirror didn't look like someone about to blow up her in-laws' lives. Ready? Daniel called from downstairs. No. Ready. I called back. The drive to Constance's house took 25 minutes through suburban sprawl and tree-lined streets. She lived in a neighborhood that screamed upper-middle-class respectability, manicured lawns, American flags, SUVs in every driveway. Number 847 Maple Ridge Lane. White colonial. Black shutters. Roses in the front garden that Constance tended herself. She was waiting on the porch when we pulled up, apron already on, smile wide and warm. There they are, she called, waving. I was starting to worry you'd forgotten about me. Daniel laughed, climbing out. We'd never forget you, Mom. I followed more slowly, hyper-aware of the device against my skin, the microphone hidden beneath fabric. Constance hugged Daniel first, then me, pulling me into that perfume cloud embrace she always gave, like she was auditioning for Mother of the Year. Ava, sweetheart, you look exhausted. Are you sleeping enough? Work's been busy, I said, forcing a smile. Well, you just relax today. I've got everything handled. Inside, the house smelled like roasting meat and rosemary. The dining table was already set for 3, good china, cloth napkins, fresh flowers in a vase. Where's Dad? Daniel asked, looking around. Golf tournament, Constance said breezily. You know how he is. But it's nice, just the 3 of us. We so rarely get quality time. Quality time. Right. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment. Inside, I pulled out my phone and texted Lydia, I'm here. Device is active. Her response, good. Remember, let her talk. Don't push too hard. I flushed the toilet for authenticity and washed my hands, staring at myself in Constance's tasteful beige bathroom. Everything about this house was carefully curated. Tasteful art. Coordinated towels. A soap dispenser that probably cost more than my first car. A house built on stolen money. When I returned to the kitchen, Constance was pulling the roast from the oven while Daniel set out serving dishes. Ava, honey, pour yourself some wine, Constance said. The Pinot's already open on the counter. I poured a glass I had no intention of drinking. I needed to stay sharp. Dinner started normally. Constance asked about Daniel's work, about my nonprofit, about whether we'd thought any more about giving her grandchildren. The usual intrusive questions wrapped in maternal concern. I picked at my food, waiting for the right moment. It came when Daniel excused himself to take a work call from the hospital. Suddenly, it was just Constance and me at the table. She smiled, sipping her wine. It's nice to have girl time. We don't do this enough. No, I agreed. We don't. You know, I worry about you, Ava. You work so hard. Sometimes I think you take on too much, trying to save the world when you should be taking care of yourself. The concern sounded genuine. It probably would have fooled me a month ago. Actually, I said carefully, I've been thinking a lot about money lately. Financial security. Constance's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Oh. That scare with my bank account really shook me. Made me realize how vulnerable our systems are. Those hackers are terrible. So sophisticated now. Right. It's crazy how they can access accounts even with passwords and security questions. Like they're inside your computer or something. I watched her face. Still calm. Still composed. Technology, she sighed. It's wonderful until it isn't. That's why I always tell people, Be so careful who you let fix your devices. You never know what someone might install. The audacity was breathtaking. That's actually good advice, I said. I've been more careful since Jared fixed my laptop. Did her hand tighten on her wine glass? Maybe. Maybe not. Jared's very good with computers, she said evenly. He's helped so many people in the family. Just last month he helped my bridge partner Dorothy with her system. Dorothy. My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice casual. That's nice of him. Does he do it professionally? Oh, no. Just a hobby. He's so generous with his time. She took another sip. Although between you and me, I sometimes wonder if he should charge. He's saved people thousands in repair costs. Like Dorothy? Exactly. Poor thing was convinced she'd been hacked. Lost quite a bit of money, actually. I felt terrible. I was the one who suggested she let Jared help her. But of course, her situation had nothing to do with him. Just coincidence. Coincidence, I repeated. Terrible luck, really. First her, then my nephew Kevin, Daniel's cousin. He had the same thing happen. Also after Jared helped him with a computer issue. She was admitting it. Not directly, but close enough. Blaming coincidence for a pattern she'd orchestrated. That's awful, I said. 3 people in the same family, all hacked after computer repairs. What are the odds? Constance's smile thinned slightly. The world's full of criminals, sweetheart. We do our best to help people, but sometimes bad luck just follows. Is it luck, though? Or is it something else? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Constance set down her wine glass with deliberate care. What are you suggesting, Ava? I'm suggesting that maybe the common denominator isn't bad luck. You're upset about your money, Constance said, her tone shifting from warm to coolly sympathetic. I understand. But you need to be careful about throwing around accusations when you're emotional. I'm not emotional. I'm informed. Her eyes narrowed. Informed about what? This was it. The moment. I had my laptop forensically analyzed. They found everything, Constance. The remote access software. The keylogger. The screen captures. All installed the day Jared repaired it. All reporting back to his IP address in Denver. For 3 seconds, she said nothing. Then she laughed, a light, dismissive sound. That's ridiculous. Jared would never. They also found logs from 2 other deployments. D. Mitchell and K. Reeves. Dorothy and Kevin. The same software, installed the same way, reporting to the same server. The laugh died. Constance's face hardened into something I'd never seen before. No warmth. No pretense. Just cold calculation. You can't prove any of that, she said quietly. Actually, I can. Forensic report. Digital signatures. Command and control server traced to Jared's house. I have everything. She stood up slowly, bracing her hands on the table. You have no idea what you're doing. I'm protecting myself. And Dorothy. And Kevin. And whoever else you were planning to target next. We helped those people, she hissed. Dorothy was lonely. Kevin was struggling. We were there for them when no one else was. If they lost money, that's tragic, but it wasn't. Your son stole from them, and you orchestrated it. I orchestrated nothing. Her voice rose. I suggested Jared help with computers because he's good at it. What he does beyond that is his business. You sent him to vulnerable people specifically. You created access and opportunity. Constance's hands were shaking now. You're trying to destroy this family. I'm trying to stop you from destroying anyone else. The kitchen door swung open. Daniel stood there, phone still in his hand, face drained of color. How long have you been standing there? Constance demanded. Long enough. His voice cracked. Mom, what is she talking about? Constance's expression transformed instantly, back to concerned mother, confused and hurt. Sweetheart, Ava's had a very stressful month. I think she's confused about. Don't, I said sharply. Don't you dare gaslight him the way you tried to gaslight Dorothy and Kevin. Daniel looked between us, lost. Someone explain. Now. I pulled the recording device from beneath my shirt and set it on the table. I've been recording this conversation, I said. Every word. Every admission. Constance's face went white. She couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel stared at the device, then at me. Ava, what the hell? Your mother and your cousin have been stealing from family members for at least a year. They install spyware on computers during repairs, then use it to access bank accounts. Dorothy Mitchell lost $43,000. Kevin Reeves lost $12,000. I lost $19,000. That's insane, Daniel said, but he was looking at his mother. Mom, tell her that's insane. Constance opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I never stole anything, she finally whispered. But Jared did, I said. And you knew. You sent him to them. You created the opportunity, and when they reported it, you comforted them. You even offered Dorothy money, guilt money, to keep her from looking too close. I was trying to help. You were covering your tracks. Daniel sank into a chair, head in his hands. This isn't happening. It is happening, I said gently. And I need you to believe me. He looked up at me, eyes red. Do you have proof? Real proof? I pulled out my phone, accessing the encrypted files Lydia had sent. Forensic analysis. 3 victim statements. Bank records. Server logs. All of it traced back to Jared's system and your mother's coordination. Constance backed toward the counter, gripping the edge. You're ruining everything. After everything I've done for this family. You've stolen from this family, I corrected. And tomorrow, I'm filing a federal complaint. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. Unless what? She spat. Unless you make full restitution to all 3 victims, provide a written confession, and agree to never contact any of us again. You do that, and we don't pursue charges. Silence. Then Constance started crying, big, theatrical sobs. Daniel, please, she begged. She's lying. I would never. Stop. His voice was flat, dead. Just stop. He stood, walked to where I sat, and looked at the recording device. Is it true? He asked quietly. All of it? Yes. He nodded once, then turned to his mother. I need you to leave your own house. What? Get out. Go upstairs. Stay there. I need to talk to my wife. Constance looked at him like he'd slapped her. Daniel. Now, Mom. She fled, still crying, footsteps pounding up the stairs. When we were alone, Daniel sat down across from me. Show me everything, he said. So I did. We sat at Constance's dining table for 2 hours while I walked Daniel through everything. The forensic report. The bank statements. The timeline of Jared's repairs coinciding with fraudulent withdrawals. Dorothy's story. Kevin's story. Mine. He didn't interrupt. Didn't defend. Just read every page with the methodical focus of someone trying to solve a medical case, looking for the diagnosis that explained all the symptoms. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. Kevin never said anything to me. He tried to tell his wife. She didn't believe him. His wife is my cousin Jennifer. Daniel closed his eyes. She called me 3 months ago. Said Kevin was acting paranoid, accusing Jared of crazy things. She asked if I thought Kevin was having a breakdown. What did you tell her? I told her Kevin was probably stressed from work. That Jared would never do something like that. He laughed bitterly. I defended him. I actually told her that family doesn't steal from family. You didn't know. I should have. His hands were shaking. My mother, she was there when Jennifer called. I put it on speaker. And Mom said the same thing, that Kevin must be confused, that these things happen when people are under stress. She was so convincing. Because she'd had practice. Years of it, probably. Perfecting the concerned relative act while her nephew systematically robbed people blind. Daniel, I said carefully, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. Did you know? Any part of it? The question hung between us like a blade. No. His voice broke. God, no. Ava, I swear to you, I had no idea. If I'd known, he couldn't finish. I believed him. Maybe I was a fool, but I believed him. Okay, I said. Okay? He stared at me. That's it? I just told you my mother's a criminal and my cousin's a thief and they stole from you, from my own family members, and you say okay? What else is there to say? I don't know. He stood abruptly, pacing. I should say something. Do something. Fix this somehow. But I don't know how to fix the fact that my mother, his voice cracked again. She raised me. She taught me right from wrong. She made me promise never to lie, never to cheat, never to take what wasn't mine. And this whole time, she was. He stopped at the window, fists clenched. Upstairs, we could hear Constance moving around. Pacing, probably. Listening. What happens now? Daniel asked without turning around. Tomorrow, I meet with my attorney and a federal prosecutor. We present the evidence. If Constance and Jared cooperate, full restitution, written confession, we can potentially keep this out of criminal court. If they don't, federal charges. Yes. He turned to face me. What do you want to happen? The question caught me off guard. What do I want? You're the victim here. You and Dorothy and Kevin. You get to decide how far this goes. I thought about Dorothy in Lydia's conference room, hands shaking as she described being made to feel senile. About Kevin's voice when he said his wife didn't believe him. About $19,000 stolen while I was trying to help homeless families. I want them to face consequences, I said. Real ones. Not just an apology and a check. I want it on record that they did this so they can't do it again. Daniel nodded slowly. Even if it destroys my relationship with my mother? Your mother destroyed that relationship the moment she decided stealing from your wife was acceptable. He flinched, but didn't argue. Footsteps on the stairs made us both turn. Constance appeared in the doorway, no longer crying. Her face was composed, almost serene. I'd like to speak now, she said. I don't think that's a good idea, Mom. Nevertheless. She moved to the table, sat down with perfect posture. Ava, I owe you an apology. I waited. I underestimated you. I thought you were too busy, too trusting, she paused, choosing her words carefully, naive to look beneath the surface. That was my mistake. That's not an apology, Daniel said. That's you admitting you targeted her. Constance ignored him, keeping her eyes on me. How much? Excuse me? How much to make this go away? Full restitution, you said. Fine. $74,000 across 3 victims. I can have that transferred by Tuesday. The casual way she said it, like we were negotiating a car purchase, made my skin crawl. And Jared? I asked. Jared will write a confession. Vague enough to keep him out of prison, specific enough to satisfy your legal requirements. And you? Her smile was knife-thin. I'm an old woman who trusted her nephew to help people with technology. I had no knowledge of any illegal activity. That's a lie, Daniel said. Prove it. She turned to him. Sweetheart, I love you. But your wife recorded a conversation where I admitted nothing prosecutable. Suspicion isn't evidence. Coincidence isn't conspiracy. I pulled out my phone, replayed part of our conversation. I suggested Jared help with computers because he's good at it. What he does beyond that is his business. Plausible deniability, Constance said calmly. I suggested tech support. I didn't suggest theft. Any decent lawyer would argue I'm a victim too, manipulated by a nephew I trusted. She was right. The recording proved pattern and opportunity, but not direct conspiracy. Not enough for criminal charges against her. Lydia had warned me about this. People like Constance always had an exit strategy. So Jared takes the fall, I said. You pay the money, he writes the confession, and you walk away clean. I walk away a mother who made a terrible error in judgment. Tragic, really. But not criminal. Daniel was staring at her like she was a stranger. You're going to let Jared go to prison to protect yourself. Jared won't go to prison if he cooperates. Probation, maybe. Community service. He's young, first offense. He'll recover. She folded her hands. This is the deal, Ava. Take it or leave it. You get your money, your justice, and I get to maintain my reputation. Everyone wins. Except the next people you target. There won't be a next time. You've made that abundantly clear. I looked at Daniel. He looked shattered. I need to make a call, I said. I stepped outside into the cool evening air and dialed Lydia. How'd it go? She asked immediately. She's offering full restitution and Jared's confession in exchange for no charges against her. Smart. She's insulating herself. Can we prove conspiracy? Lydia was quiet for a moment. Not with what we have. The recording helps, but she's careful. Never says she knew about the theft, just that she made introductions. A prosecutor could try, but it's not a slam dunk. So she wins. She pays $74,000 and watches her nephew face consequences. That's not winning. It's not enough. I know. But Ava, sometimes partial justice is better than no justice. If we push for charges against her and fail, we might lose leverage for restitution too. I leaned against the porch railing, watching sprinklers run on the neighbor's lawn. What about Dorothy and Kevin? Do they get a say? Absolutely. We'll conference call them tomorrow before the prosecutor meeting. But you need to prepare yourself, they might take the deal. Guaranteed money versus the uncertainty of trial. She was right. I knew she was right. But it still felt like Constance was getting away with it. When I went back inside, Daniel was alone in the kitchen. Where's your mother? Upstairs. Packing. Packing? I told her to leave. She can stay at a hotel tonight, but she's not sleeping under the same roof as you after what she did. Something in my chest loosened. Daniel. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't thank me for doing the bare minimum of supporting my wife. I should have believed you immediately. I should have questioned things months ago when Kevin's name came up. I should have. He stopped, swallowing hard. I'm sorry. This isn't your fault. She's my mother. That makes it partially my responsibility. No. It makes it her crime and your heartbreak. There's a difference. He pulled me into a hug then, the kind that felt like he was trying to hold us both together. We stood there in Constance's kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of a dinner that would never be finished, until we heard her coming down the stairs with a suitcase. She paused in the doorway. I'll be at the Marriott downtown. When you're ready to discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, Daniel said without releasing me. You'll hear from Ava's attorney tomorrow about restitution terms. If you refuse, she files charges. Those are your options. Constance's mask slipped for just a second. I saw rage flash across her face before she controlled it. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing right over wrong. The fact that you can't see the difference is the whole problem. She left without another word. We heard her car start, then pull away. The house felt enormous in the silence. We should go, I said quietly. Daniel nodded. But before we left, he walked through the house turning off lights, closing windows, locking doors. Taking care of his mother's home even after everything. On the drive back to our house, he said, I need to call my father. Tell him what's happening before Mom spins it. He's going to take her side. Probably. They've been married 42 years. But he deserves to know the truth. I didn't argue. Daniel needed to do this his way, needed to believe that honesty mattered even when the outcome was predetermined. At home, he made the call while I uploaded the recording to Lydia's secure server. I could hear his voice from the other room, calm at first, then rising as his father apparently defended Constance. When he finally emerged, his face was set in grim lines. He said I'm being manipulated. That you've poisoned me against my own mother. That family loyalty matters more than money. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's wrong. Daniel sat beside me on the couch. I keep thinking about something you said, that she destroyed our relationship when she decided stealing from you was acceptable. But it's worse than that. How? She destroyed it when she recruited her nephew to do it. When she sent him into vulnerable people's lives with the specific intent of creating access. When she comforted Dorothy and Kevin and you while knowing exactly what had happened to them. That's not just theft, Ava. That's sociopathic. He was right. And watching him come to that realization about his own mother was one of the most painful things I'd ever witnessed. We're going to get through this, I said. Are we? He looked at me with devastating honesty. Because half my family is going to hate you for this. Cousin Jennifer, my father, probably my aunts and uncles once Mom tells her version. Are you prepared for that? Are you? I don't know. But I know I can't stay married to you and pretend this didn't happen. So I guess I don't have a choice. It wasn't the most romantic declaration, but it was honest. And right then, honesty was worth more than romance. That night, neither of us slept much. We lay in bed staring at the ceiling, occasionally reaching for each other's hands, saying nothing because there was nothing left to say. Tomorrow, the real battle began. Tomorrow, we'd find out if Constance would pay the price or force us to fight for it. Tomorrow, everything changed. But tonight, we had this, the quiet solidarity of two people who decided to face the hard thing together. And maybe that was enough. The conference call with Dorothy and Kevin happened at 9 Monday morning. Lydia had us all on video, me from my home office, Dorothy from what looked like a sunny kitchen, Kevin from his car in some parking lot. Thank you both for making time, Lydia began. Ava recorded her conversation with Constance yesterday. I'm going to play the relevant portions, then we need to discuss next steps. She played the audio. I watched Dorothy's face crumble when she heard Constance casually mention her name, dismissing $43,000 as terrible luck. Kevin's jaw clenched tighter with each passing second. When it ended, silence filled the screen. She's not even sorry, Dorothy finally whispered. She's just sorry she got caught. That's accurate, Lydia confirmed. Which brings us to the offer. Constance is willing to provide full restitution to all three of you, $74,000 total, distributed according to your individual losses. Additionally, Jared will provide a written confession to installing unauthorized software and accessing your accounts. What about Constance? Kevin asked. Does she confess to anything? No. She maintains she had no knowledge of Jared's illegal activities. She claims she merely suggested he help with technical issues. That's bullshit, Kevin said flatly. Yes, it is. But it's also hard to prove beyond her involvement. The recording establishes pattern and opportunity, but not direct conspiracy. A prosecutor could try, but conviction isn't guaranteed. Dorothy leaned closer to her camera. So she pays money and walks away? That's it? If you accept the deal, yes. If you reject it, we file federal charges against both Constance and Jared. Wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. But that route means months of legal proceedings, no guarantee of restitution, and significant emotional cost. I want her punished, Dorothy said, her voice stronger than I'd heard before. I want everyone to know what she did. Lydia nodded. I understand. But I need you to consider something. If we go to trial and lose, you get nothing. No money, no confession, no justice. Constance has resources, good lawyers, community standing, a clean record. She'll fight, and she might win. She might not, Kevin countered. True. But are you prepared to risk everything on the might? The question hung there like a weight. I spoke up. There's another option we haven't discussed. Everyone turned their attention to me. We accept the restitution and confession from Jared, but we make it public. Not criminal charges, but civil. We file a lawsuit, civil conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud. The burden of proof is lower, and even if we don't win, the lawsuit becomes public record. Local media picks it up. Her reputation gets destroyed whether she's convicted or not. Lydia's eyebrows rose. That's actually brilliant. And vicious. She wants to protect her reputation while paying us off. Fine. We take the money and destroy the reputation anyway. Kevin smiled for the first time since I'd met him. I like it. Jennifer's family will see the lawsuit. They can't ignore public records. It won't bring criminal charges, Lydia cautioned. Jared might get probation, but Constance won't see jail time. I don't care about jail, Dorothy said quietly. I care about people knowing. I care about the next lonely widow understanding what happened before Constance sends her helpful nephew over with his laptop bag and his excuses. Then we're agreed? I asked. Take restitution, file civil suit. Dorothy nodded. Kevin said, absolutely. Lydia made notes. I'll draft the settlement agreement with Constance for the restitution and Jared's confession. Simultaneously, I'll prepare the civil complaint. The moment the money clears, we file. She won't see it coming. When do we meet with the prosecutor? I asked. 2 p.m. today. Federal Building downtown. They're expecting us. I sent preliminary evidence Friday. They're very interested, especially given the multi-victim pattern. After the call ended, I sat alone in my office trying to process what we just decided. It felt strategic and cold, which wasn't how I'd imagined justice would feel. I'd thought there would be righteousness, clarity, good triumphing over evil in some cinematic way. Instead, it felt like negotiation. Like compromise. Like winning by degrees instead of knockout. My phone buzzed. Daniel, how'd it go? Me, taking the deal. Filing civil suit after. I'll explain tonight. Daniel, whatever you need. I'm with you. 3 words that shouldn't have made me cry, but did. The Federal Building was all marble and security checkpoints. Lydia met me in the lobby at 1:45, carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than my car. Ready? She asked. No. But let's do it anyway. The prosecutor assigned to our case was a woman named Caroline Vasquez, early 50s, no-nonsense suit, eyes that had seen every con and scam imaginable. Her office was small but organized, case files stacked with military precision. Ms. Hartley, she said, shaking my hand. Ms. Grant has provided compelling preliminary evidence. Walk me through the timeline personally. So I did. Again. Starting with the bank alert, moving through the forensic analysis, ending with yesterday's recording. Prosecutor Vasquez listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Here's my assessment. Jared Whitmore is prosecutable. Clear evidence, digital trail, multiple victims, confession forthcoming. I can get him on wire fraud and identity theft. He's looking at 18 to 36 months federal time, possibly probation if he cooperates fully. And Constance? Lydia asked. Harder. The recording is suggestive but not conclusive. She never explicitly states knowledge of theft or intent to conspire. A good defense attorney, which she'll have, will argue she's a well-meaning woman who trusted the wrong person. Jury might buy it. So she walks, I said bitterly. Criminally? Probably. But there are other avenues. Vasquez pulled out a different file. Your attorney mentioned civil action. I can't be involved in that officially, but off the record. Hit her where it hurts. Reputation, social standing, community perception. People like Constance Whitmore thrive on respectability. Take that away, and you've done more damage than 6 months in minimum security ever would. You're saying don't pursue criminal charges against her? I'm saying pursue them if you want, but temper your expectations. What I can do is make Jared's case very public. Press releases, victim impact statements, court proceedings open to media. Your civil suit running parallel? That amplifies everything. Lydia was nodding. Coordinated exposure. Criminal case against Jared makes headlines, civil case against Constance keeps her name attached. Exactly. And Ms. Hartley, if you're willing to give a victim impact statement during Jared's sentencing, that goes on record. Media can quote it. Your story becomes part of the permanent narrative. My story. Dorothy's story. Kevin's story. I'll do it, I said. Whatever it takes to make sure people know. Vasquez smiled approvingly. Good. Now, your attorney mentioned Constance is offering restitution. I need that in writing before we proceed. Once money changes hands and we have Jared's written confession, I'll move forward with federal charges against him. Timeline? Lydia asked. 48 hours to finalize settlement. Another week to prepare charges. Arraignment within 10 days. It was happening. Really happening. We left the federal building an hour later with a clear plan: accept Constance's deal, secure restitution and confession, then unleash coordinated legal and public relations hell. She's going to realize what we're doing, I said as Lydia walked me to my car. Not until it's too late. The civil suit won't be filed until after the money clears. By then, she can't take it back. And if she tries to buy us off again? Offers more money to drop the civil case? Lydia's smile was sharp. We don't negotiate with thieves twice. That evening, I met Daniel at a restaurant neither of us had been to before. Neutral ground. We needed neutral ground. He looked exhausted, dark circles, rumpled shirt, the kind of tired that comes from emotional demolition rather than physical work. How'd it go? He asked after we ordered. I told him everything. The prosecutor's assessment. The plan to accept restitution while pursuing civil charges. The timeline. He absorbed it quietly, nodding occasionally. My father called again, he said finally. Told me if I testify against my own mother, he'll disown me. My stomach dropped. Daniel. I told him I'm not testifying against her because there are no criminal charges against her. But if there were, I'd tell the truth. That's when he hung up. I'm sorry. Don't be. He met my eyes. I've been thinking a lot about family loyalty. What it means. Dad thinks it means protecting people no matter what they've done. But that's not loyalty, that's enabling. Real loyalty means holding people accountable because you love them, not despite it. Your mom won't see it that way. No. But maybe someday she will. When she's sitting in a room alone, wondering why no one visits, maybe she'll understand that actions have consequences. The food arrived, but neither of us ate much. Cousin Jennifer called too, Daniel added. She heard about everything from her mother, who heard from my mother. Jennifer's convinced you fabricated all of this to destroy the family. Kevin's her husband. He was one of the victims. I mentioned that. She said Kevin's confused, that you've manipulated him somehow. Daniel's voice was flat with disbelief. She actually asked if you were having an affair with Kevin and this was all an elaborate cover-up. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so sad. What did you say? I told her to read the forensic report. Send it to her email. She blocked me. We sat with that for a moment, the reality that Daniel was losing his family to protect mine. Are you going to be okay? I asked quietly. Eventually. Right now, I'm just trying to remember who these people actually are versus who I thought they were. He pushed food around his plate. My mom used to make me return extra change if a cashier gave me too much. She'd say, integrity matters more than a few dollars, Danny. And I believed her. I built my whole moral framework around lessons she taught me. Those lessons were still real. Were they? Or was she just teaching me rules she never intended to follow herself? He looked up, eyes wet. How do I trust my own judgment when the person who taught me right from wrong was lying the whole time? I had no answer for that. We sat in a half-empty restaurant, picking at cooling food, mourning the loss of people who were still alive but would never be family again. The settlement meeting is Wednesday, I said eventually. Constance, Jared, their attorney, Lydia, and me. You don't have to be there. I want to be there. Daniel. I need to see her sign it. I need to watch her admit, even legally, what she's done. Otherwise, part of me will always wonder if we got it wrong. We didn't get it wrong. But I understood the need for certainty. Okay, I said. Wednesday. We face her together. He reached across the table, taking my hand. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For not giving up on me when I'm related to people who did this to you. I squeezed his hand. You're not responsible for their choices. I know. But thank you anyway. We finished dinner in quiet solidarity, two people bound by love and trauma, preparing for the final confrontation with a woman who taught us both, in very different ways, exactly who she really was. Wednesday was coming. And with it, the moment Constance would sign away her control while thinking she'd won. She had no idea what we'd unleashed. But she would. Soon. Wednesday arrived with unseasonable cold and gray skies that matched my mood perfectly. The settlement meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Lydia's office. I dressed carefully, navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional armor for facing down a woman who'd stolen from me while serving pot roast. Daniel met me in the parking lot. He looked like he hadn't slept, but his jaw was set with determination. Last chance to stay home, I offered. Not a chance. Inside, Lydia had set up the conference room like a courtroom. Documents arranged in precise stacks, recording equipment visible, chairs positioned to put Constance and Jared on one side of the table with us on the other. Their attorney is Nathan Briggs, Lydia briefed us quietly. Former prosecutor, now does white-collar defense. He's good, but he knows his clients don't have leverage here. This should be straightforward. At 9:58, they arrived. Jared looked exactly like what he was, a caught thief trying to appear smaller than his crimes. Hunched shoulders, eyes on the floor, wearing a button-down shirt that probably came from Constance's last-minute damage control shopping trip. Constance, however, looked immaculate. Tailored dress, perfect hair, the expression of a woman attending a charity board meeting rather than her own reckoning. She didn't look at Daniel. Didn't acknowledge me. Just sat down and folded her hands on the table like she was chairing a committee. Her attorney, Briggs, was 50-something with silver hair and an expensive watch. He nodded professionally at Lydia. Shall we begin? Lydia slid copies of the settlement agreement across the table. This document outlines full restitution to 3 victims, Ava Hartley, Dorothy Mitchell, and Kevin Reeves. Total amount of $74,000, distributed according to individual losses. Additionally, Jared Whitmore will provide a written confession to unauthorized computer access and financial fraud. Briggs scanned the document. My clients agree to the financial terms. However, the confession needs modification. We can't have language that amounts to a criminal admission. The confession is non-negotiable, Lydia said calmly. It's already been agreed upon with the federal prosecutor's office. Jared admits to installing remote access software without authorization and using it to access bank accounts. Those facts are undisputed. The facts are my client made mistakes in judgment. Your client committed federal crimes, Lydia interrupted. Multiple times. Against multiple victims. The confession is the reason he's getting a plea deal instead of a trial. If you want to renegotiate, we can walk out right now and file full charges against both defendants. Constance's mask cracked for just a second. Both? You were recorded admitting to sending Jared to vulnerable individuals, knowing they'd grant him access to their computers. That establishes conspiracy. I admitted nothing of the sort. Lydia pressed play on the recording. Constance's voice filled the room. I suggested Jared help with computers because he's good at it. He's helped so many people in the family. Poor thing was convinced she'd been hacked. Lost quite a bit of money. Of course, her situation had nothing to do with him. Just coincidence. The sarcasm dripping from coincidence was damning. Suggestive, but not conclusive, Briggs said, though he sounded less confident. Perhaps. But combined with the digital forensics showing a pattern, the victim statements, and the timeline of your client's helpful computer repairs? A jury might find it very conclusive indeed. Silence settled over the table like fog. Finally, Constance spoke directly to me for the first time. You must be very proud of yourself. I'm just tired, I said honestly. Tired of people like you thinking family means immunity from consequences. I raised him. She gestured to Daniel without looking at him. I sacrificed everything for my children. And this is how you repay me? By destroying our family? Daniel's voice was quiet but firm. You destroyed it yourself, Mom. You just didn't think anyone would notice. She flinched like he'd struck her. Then her eyes went cold. Sign the papers, she said to Briggs. Let's get this over with. The settlement took 30 minutes to finalize. Constance signed with sharp, angry strokes. Jared's signature trembled on the confession, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen. When it was done, Lydia collected all copies. Funds will be transferred within 24 hours. Upon confirmation, this settlement becomes binding and enforceable. And then we're done, Constance said. It wasn't a question. Criminally, yes. The federal charges against Jared will proceed as outlined, but with the confession, he'll likely receive probation rather than prison time. Relief flickered across Jared's face. However, Lydia continued, this settlement only addresses criminal liability. It doesn't preclude civil action. Briggs's head snapped up. What civil action? That's attorney work product. You'll be served when appropriate. Constance stood abruptly. You said if we paid, this was over. I said criminal charges against you would not be pursued. I never said you wouldn't face other consequences. You lied. I negotiated. There's a difference. Lydia's smile was professional ice. You wanted to protect your reputation while making restitution. You're getting exactly what you bargained for. Understanding dawned on Constance's face. Then rage. Whatever you're planning, it won't work. I have friends. Influence. No one will believe some vindictive daughter-in-law over me. They might believe 3 victims with forensic evidence and federal documentation, I said. And a son willing to testify about what he witnessed. Constance finally looked at Daniel. Really looked at him. You wouldn't. I would, he said. I will. If Ava needs me to tell the truth about what I heard and saw, I'll do it under oath. I'm your mother. And she's my wife. The woman I chose to build a life with. You forced me to choose, and I'm choosing her. Something in Constance broke then. Not into tears or apologies, but into something harder. Colder. Then you're no son of mine. I can live with that, Daniel said, though his voice wavered. Can you live with what you've done? She didn't answer. Just grabbed her purse and walked out, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Jared stood uncertainly. I'm sorry, he mumbled, not looking at anyone. I knew it was wrong, but she said it was just borrowing, that we'd pay it back eventually, and I... Stop, Lydia said sharply. Don't make excuses to us. Save it for your probation officer. He left like a kicked dog, shoulders hunched against the weight of his own choices. When we were alone, Daniel slumped in his chair. Is it always going to feel this awful? Probably, Lydia said, not unkindly. Doing the right thing usually does. But it gets easier. When Dorothy gets her money back. When Kevin stops being called paranoid by his wife. When the next potential victim sees the news story and knows to say no when someone offers to fix their computer. She started gathering documents. Justice isn't about feeling good. It's about stopping the harm. We left Lydia's office an hour later with confirmation that the settlement was executed and funds would transfer by end of business Thursday. What happens now? Daniel asked as we stood by our cars. Now we wait for the money to clear. Then Lydia files the civil suit, and it all becomes public record. How long until she figures it out? The lawsuit will be filed Friday morning. She'll probably be served by Monday. And then? Then the real consequences start. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I need to tell you something. My heart sank. Okay. I called my father last night. Told him I was attending the settlement meeting. He said if I went through with it, I should consider myself without parents. Daniel. Let me finish. He took a breath. I told him that if choosing right over wrong meant losing parents who valued loyalty over justice, then I'd made the right choice. And then I told him I loved him, but I couldn't be part of a family that protected predators. What did he say? He hung up. But before he did, I heard him crying. We stood in the parking lot as cold wind picked up, scattering leaves across the asphalt. Do you regret it? I asked quietly. Every second. And not at all. He looked at me. That's the thing about doing the right thing when it costs you everything, you regret the cost, but not the choice. Thursday, the money cleared. All $74,000, distributed exactly as outlined. I watched my bank balance update and felt nothing. Not relief. Not satisfaction. Just acknowledgement that one piece had fallen into place. I called Dorothy. She answered on the first ring. Did you get it? I got it, she said, and I heard tears in her voice. $43,000. I can pay off the medical bills I'd been avoiding. I can fix my roof. I can breathe again. You deserved it. So did you. Are you okay, dear? The question caught me off guard. I don't know yet. That's honest. Call me when you figure it out. Kevin texted, money received. Jennifer saw the deposit. Asking questions. Thank you. Maybe his wife would finally believe him. Maybe not. But at least he had proof now. Friday morning, Lydia filed the civil lawsuit, Hartley versus Whitmore, et al. Fraud, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. 3 plaintiffs. 2 defendants. Public record. By Friday afternoon, the local news had picked it up. Prominent local family accused in computer fraud scheme. By evening, it was the lead story on 3 stations. My phone started buzzing with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some supportive. Some accusing. All of them wanting the story. I turned off my phone and sat with Daniel in our living room, watching the news coverage in silence. They're using her junior league photo, Daniel observed. The one from the hospital fundraiser. Constance's smiling face filled the screen, looking charitable and kind. The caption read, accused of coordinating theft from elderly woman. How do you feel? I asked. Like I'm watching a stranger. That woman on screen, I don't know her. Maybe I never did. By the following week, Jared had been formally charged federally. His arraignment was brief: guilty plea, cooperation with prosecutors, recommended sentence of probation and restitution already paid. The victim impact statements came later. Dorothy went first, her voice shaking but strong. I was made to feel senile and incompetent when I was neither. I was simply trusting. And that trust was weaponized against me. Kevin spoke about the damage to his marriage, the months of being called paranoid, the isolation of not being believed. When my turn came, I stood in that federal courtroom and looked directly at Jared. You didn't just steal money. You stole security. Sleep. Trust. The belief that family means safety. And you did it while pretending to help. That's not just theft, that's betrayal. The judge sentenced Jared to 3 years probation, 300 hours community service, and permanent prohibition from working in any technology-related field involving access to others' devices. It wasn't prison. But it was something. The civil suit took longer, 8 months of depositions, discovery, legal maneuvering. In the end, we settled again. Constance paid an additional $50,000 in damages, split among the 3 of us, and signed an agreement never to contact any of us again. The settlement was reported in the same newspapers that had covered her charity work for decades. Her reputation never recovered. 6 months after everything ended, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting from years of birthday cards. Ava, I hope someday you understand that I never meant to hurt anyone. I was trying to help my nephew, to give him opportunities. What he did with those opportunities was his choice, not mine. You've destroyed my relationship with my son and my standing in this community. I hope you're satisfied. C. I read it once, then put it through the shredder. Daniel came home to find me staring at the strips of paper. From her? Yeah. What did it say? That she's still blaming everyone but herself. He nodded slowly. You okay? Yeah. Actually, I am. And I was. Not healed, healing takes longer than months. But okay. Functional. Moving forward. Dorothy called sometimes, just to chat. Kevin sent Christmas cards. Daniel and I went to therapy to process the family trauma and rebuild trust. Slowly, life reassembled itself into something new. One morning, almost a year later, I was having coffee when Daniel showed me his phone. Jennifer reached out. She wants to apologize. Kevin's wife? Yeah. Apparently they've been in marriage counseling. She finally accepted that he was telling the truth. She wants to know if you'd be willing to meet. What did you tell her? That I'd ask you. I thought about it. About grudges and grace. About how Jennifer had called me a liar and an adulterer when I'd been the victim. Tell her, maybe. Someday. But not yet. Fair enough. The nonprofit I'd built continued thriving. If anything, the publicity, Woman Fights Back Against Family Fraud, had increased donations. People respected someone who didn't back down. And late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about Constance sitting alone in whatever house she'd moved to, wondering how it all went wrong. I didn't feel sorry for her. But I understood something now that I hadn't before. Some people are so invested in their own righteousness that they can't see their own cruelty. They genuinely believe they're the victims of others' unreasonableness rather than the architects of their own consequences. Constance would probably die believing she'd been wronged. And I'd have to live with that. But I'd live with it alongside Daniel, alongside Dorothy and Kevin, alongside everyone who chose truth over comfortable lies. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. One afternoon, my daughter, the one Daniel and I finally decided to try for, asked me about her grandmother. Why don't we see Grandma Constance? She asked, barely 5 years old, innocent. Daniel and I exchanged glances. Because, I said carefully, sometimes people make choices that hurt others. And when that happens, we have to protect ourselves, even if it means not seeing people we used to love. Did she hurt you? Yes. Did you forgive her? I thought about that. Really thought about it. I let go of the anger, I said finally. But forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you again. It means accepting what happened and choosing to move forward without them. She seemed to accept this, returning to her coloring book. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. We'd built something new from the wreckage. Not perfect. Still scarred. But ours. And no one could take that away. Not with software. Not with lies. Not with blood ties that bound tighter than integrity. We were free. Finally, completely, irrevocably free. And that was the real victory. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.